I cannot explain to you with words. It's just something from your inside telling you that you're home. And it's a good feeling. And living for so many years in Europe, living in Washington, D.C. for work, living in the UK, it's only Africa that brought that from the inside of me. And it's very difficult to explain that. You have to experience it to understand.
I'm a king. Yes,
Welcome back. This is Femi Show for Africa Web TV. We are having our Africa Narrative podcast, and we are at the Sphinx Mix Festival. It's just a freestyle. Anybody can join us. We're just talking about everything, but our main focus is Africa. So, sitting with me, she just walked in confidently, like, I'm curious. It's Aribatu. She's a Nigerian Cameroonian lady who used to live in Belgium, now lives in Luxembourg. Aribatu, you've been living in Europe for like...
I've been living in Europe for more than 35 years now.
More than 35 years.
Actually, 40 years to be exactly correct.
Okay. But you came here when you were young.
Yeah, when I was 3.
How often do you get to go back to Africa?
So the first time I flew to Africa was this year. But on February I was in Ivory Coast. On April I was in Cameroon. 2 weeks ago I was in Nigeria. And on December I'm going back to Nigeria.
Let me get this straight. So all those years that you lived in Europe, you never went back to Africa until the year 2024. And then you went to
Ivory Coast.
Ivory Coast already this year.
Cameroon.
And you went to Cameroon already this year.
Yeah.
You went to Nigeria already this year.
Yeah.
And in a few months, you're going back to Nigeria. So,
Absolutely.
So are you trying to catch up?
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to catch up. And I actually fell in love with Africa. I just felt home and free. And it's a feeling that you don't have nowhere as an African. And I'm just like, every time I'm staying in Europe now, I just miss home. So that's why I need to go back.
But you didn't miss home for 40 years.
No, because I didn't have the taste, I guess, but it's addictive. So when I flew to Ivory Coast for the first time, I just felt home, like, and now it's very difficult for me to stay here for more than 6 months without going back to Africa.
Okay, this is very interesting. You live in Europe for 40 years?
Right.
And you've been to Africa for a couple of weeks, 3 times now.
Yeah.
And you feel more at home in Africa than Europe, which is actually, one would say, is actually your home, where you grew up, where you had your education, or have all your friends. What's the difference?
I have to clarify something. I've been living 40 years in Europe, but I lived also in the US and the UK.
Yeah.
And I cannot explain to you with words. It's just something from your inside telling you that you're home. And it's a good feeling. And living for so many years in Europe, living in Washington, D.C. for work, living in the UK, it's only Africa that brought that from the inside of me. And it's very difficult to explain that. You have to experience it to understand.
Yeah, because it's not a feeling that I've had myself, because I grew up in Africa. I've lived also in Europe. And so for me, Africa has always been home. So, but for somebody who has lived practically her whole life outside of Africa, getting to Africa for the first time, and second time, and third time, and say now, hey. So what has made it that you never felt home in other places?
You know, I can give you just a very simple example. In Africa, when you enter a supermarket or store, people are just happy. They're dancing, they're singing on the music, you know, that vibration, I don't feel it here. I don't have it here. I feel like people are more happy with less. I mean, people have less than here in Europe, but are happier, and that's priceless. I can tell you that the best place I was in Africa is the village of my mom. Really, the village. Waking up in the morning, seeing chicken passing, dogs passing by. I don't know how to explain you. I just felt alive and free, which is a feeling I never had. Even living so many years in Europe, never had that. I only have that in Africa.
So we did a podcast about community in Africa versus community in Europe.
Right.
So how did you feel having lived here and then going to Africa, like you are received? What are the major differences between both?
Okay, so the difference, it depends on the country. I can tell you that when I flew to Ivory Coast, I really felt part of the country. Like, of course, local people were saying that I'm coming from Europe because they have a way to notice it. I don't know how. Maybe from the skin, the accent, I don't know. But Ivory Coast was very okay. But when I went to Cameroon, I went to the market, and of course it was super hot. I was sweating. I was having my fan, and I received a lot of different remarks, like, "Oh, if you don't like the sun here, you can go back to Europe where you belong." You know, that was kind of weird because to me, I belong to Africa, no matter how many years I spend in Europe. This is home for me, is Africa. So it depends on the country, I guess.
How was it in Nigeria?
Nigeria, well, my dad lives in Nigeria, so I was most of the time with him. But I really felt welcome in Nigeria, to be honest. People are nice. Of course, in terms of security, it's much more different than Cameroon and Ivory Coast. But people were very nice in Nigeria. It was, I tried to speak I don't know how they call it, the pidgin English. So I try, no wahala, you know? That's those few words that I'm using now.
Yeah.
But Nigeria is nice, just security-wise. And yes, of course, electricity shutting down all the time. That was not okay. But, that's the charm of Africa also.
Yeah, because you had something to eat when you were there.
Yeah.
Most of the people you met had something to eat. Most of them had a place to sleep in the night. And maybe in the morning they could find a way to wash themselves. So every other thing is luxury.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was saying, they have less, but they're more happier than you. And you put everything in perspective when you come back.
I'm really fascinated by you talking about home. When you've been home, I will say you've been home all your life, but going to Africa. How is it in simple things like making an appointment to see a friend and versus what you experienced when you went to Africa?
Let's say that people are less stressed than here. Like they will make an appointment, they will come 1 hour late. As a general rule, in Africa, people stress less than here. In Europe, when you make an appointment, you have to be on time. You say 3 p.m. At least 3:15 is the latest for you to be there. In Africa, people are just laid back. In Nigeria, I remember I was having a little issue because I was in a hotel. And people say, "Oh, sorry, In Nigeria, people tend to apologize a lot, which is, that was very weird for me. People apologize, oh, sorry, sorry. And then they will say, I'm coming and I will fix it. And then they take their time to find solution. Ivory Coast, I didn't felt it like I felt in Nigeria. And Cameroon, I would say that people don't really care in terms of service. So yes, it's very different. But on the other side, you know, you have smiling people, happy people, that, you know, that people are very warm, if I can say that way, comparing to Europe.
That's a theme we've heard a lot today about Africans being warmer than Europeans. Is it maybe because also of the weather that people in Africa are living more outside and the Europeans are living more inside? You know, there are more cold days than there are warm days in Europe.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of mentality, because when you notice Spanish people, the more you go to the south, the more people warmer become. This is what I noticed. And this is all part of our culture. I mean, African, we are nice, we like to be happy, we like to make other people happy, you know. We have that empathy that you don't find in the common Caucasian, if I can express myself like that. And I mean, that's fact, you know. It's not being mean by saying that, but that's the truth of the matter. Because I have friends and even family that are Caucasian, they will say, oh, you know, you African are always happy, you know, are always smiling no matter what. And this is what we are. We are not only that, don't get me wrong, but that's a big part of us.
If we are all of those things, why is everybody in Africa trying to come to Europe?
I think the problem, if I have to summarize it, because if I start talking about it, you can stay until tomorrow.
We have time.
I have to drop the kids to their parents. But I would say, well, in Nigeria, it's a lot of corruption. You know, our politics are very bad. They don't have that willing of developing the country and do something for the people. This is something I've been discussing with, for example, my driver in Nigeria. He has like 2 or 3 degrees, but he cannot find a job. And he explained to me that in Nigeria it's a matter of hookup. You have to be the son of someone. And that's a shame, because you have a lot of people that are really qualified, that has a degree, but they cannot find a job, sadly. But you know, by nature, I'm very positive. I hope things will change with time.
All of those people coming, like the guy you just described, having 3 degrees and whatever, but if he will come to Europe, what job is he going to get?
He will get, you know, in Europe, they ask you to have experience. But then you will find something. You will start small.
Yeah, what is small?
Small, it really...
Somebody coming from Nigeria, which is English speaking, coming to Belgium, or Luxembourg, which is French speaking.
The thing is that, for sure, coming to Belgium, he will have to learn French. Coming to Luxembourg, he can find a job, even if he speaks only English. But, I mean, if you move to a country, you kind of need to adapt to the country. I moved to Luxembourg, and I'm learning Luxembourgish. Mm-hmm. But when I was in Belgium, I speak French, Flemish, English, because, you know, you live in a country, you need to know at least the minimum, and to me, the minimum is the language.
What I'm trying to get at is that person has already 2-3 degrees. So, and most of the time, when people come from there with all their degrees here, they are going to start from the lowest rung, because if you don't speak the language, it's difficult. Even if you speak the language, they have this system where they say, oh, you have this degree, but you got it in Africa, so it's lower than ours and all of that. Because we have a lot of university graduates from Africa coming to Europe and working as cleaners.
But then I will tell you something.
Yeah.
It's true from a Belgium point of view, but I can tell you that in Luxembourg, you will have to have what they call equivalence of your degree, but then it's possible. This is Luxembourg. If we talk about Belgium, it's another story. Depending if you are coming, Brussels, of the Flemish part, of the French part, it depends. Belgium has its issue. Belgium has its issue, but it's still possible.
I was talking of Europe in general, people uprooting themselves. Isn't it better if we look and create opportunities for ourselves in Africa than making the journey? Because a lot of people are also perishing on the Mediterranean.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because it's crazy to just take the sea, trying to come here, thinking, this is my perception. I think that immigration will go the other way around in a couple of years. It's going to be then Europe trying to come to Africa. There are some countries in Africa that are doing great. And we just hope, like our country, Nigeria, Cameroon, is aiming that same direction. South Africa, Ghana, those English countries, Kenya, etc. Those are countries who are doing great. They are not to the top of their possibility, but they're on the right path. And this is what we hope for our country. But of course, that would be the ideal, the best thing will be, of course, to have a great opportunity in Africa and stay in Africa, of course, because I think for me, life is better there than here. This is my personal opinion.
Well, this is the African Narrative Podcast with Africa Web TV, and we are speaking with
Aribatu,
who grew up in Belgium, lives now in Luxembourg, has discovered Côte d'Ivoire this year, has discovered Cameroon, which is where her mother comes from, and has discovered Nigeria, which is where her father comes from, and she feels more comfortable in Africa, knowing Africa for just a couple of months, than in Europe, where she's lived practically all her lives.
I'm a king, yes, I'm a king. I'm a king.